closes its doors for the last time. Paul Davis has been with the workers in Birmingham today.
The look that said it all, as Longbridge workers learnt their last hope had just disappeared.
Yeah, look at these lads there. Just look at them all. Yeah, so if anybody wants to give me a job, 35 years service I've been here, I'm willing, able.
They'd been hanging on to the slenderest of hopes that a Chinese partnership could be revived. This morning, the administrators conceded the deal was dead, and so effectively was Rover.
So we will have to be taking steps today and during the course of the weekend to effect a significant number of redundancies. Overall, we expect there to be just under 5,000 employees made redundant.
And so, after a working lifetime on the production line, they collected their things and left.
How are you feeling today, gents?
How do you think I feel, mate? What can you say? I think it was inevitable. I just collected my pay. Look, it's going back the last 25 years. I mean, I thought I'd better empty my locker.
There was anger at owners past and present, and even at the British public that didn't buy the British-made car.
Take a look at the cars coming out the gate. How can you say that they're not good-looking cars? They're fantastic-looking cars.
But it's all too late now, as car workers took their toolboxes home for the last time.
What can you say about it? It's all over?
Yeah.
Simple as that.
At the factory gate, someone had laid flowers. It seemed appropriate. What happened here today was not unexpected. Rover's death has been a lingering one. But for the families of 5,000 workers and many thousands more who depended on this plant, this is still a dark night, and promises of help with redundancy and retraining do not alter that. Paul Davis, ITV News, Longbridge.
Well, let's go back to John Ray at Longbridge. John, obviously an unmitigated disaster for the workers, but can we judge what the political fallout is going to be?
Well, Labour, of course, says it's got a good story to tell overall on the economy. I think this highlights the fact that not everything in the garden is rosy. Manufacturing industry, in part, is struggling, and you will go a long way in this part of the world tonight to find anything close to resembling the feel-good factor, and that cannot be good news for the government when they have a slew of potentially difficult seats in this part of the world to defend in 3 weeks' time. Having said that, the good news for the government is that perhaps because we are so close to an election, the unions have stayed on side, and as for the workforce, if they do cast their round for villains, they look to the Phoenix Consortium and not to Tony Blair. It seems that these days, not even the old Labour people expect the new Labour people to bail out a company, a car company, that sadly no one seems to want.
John, thank you. Back on the
until Monday. After that, there is no certainty about anyone's future here. Nobody believed it could be so quick or so brutal. They had been told that the talks going on with China's Shanghai Automotive were going well, but it appears in the last couple of days those talks have broken down and are going nowhere. The deal is off, and Rover, it seems, is going bust. John Sparks reports now on one of the messiest business failures in recent British history.
Workers on the morning shift pass through Quaygate at Longbridge. It is an act of hope, turning up until someone tells them not to.
Sad day today, I'm afraid.
Do you think anyone's to blame?
Not really.
Rover have effectively gone bankrupt, their liabilities greater than their assets. Their employees, and there are more than 6,000 of them, could be heading for the dole.
Who can you blame? At the end of the day, we're just a small fish in big water again now, aren't we? At the end of the day. We're all just devastated. Obviously we'll find out more. That's all I can say.
The cars, well, they seemed good enough. So what went wrong with Britain's last volume car maker? The MG Rover management team had come here to China to try and rescue their business. They wanted massive investment from Shanghai Automotive to update an aging and fading fleet. But the Chinese hesitated, and 8 months later the talks bogged down. Last week, the government stepped in, offering a £100 million loan to keep Rover afloat if the two sides could come to an agreement. But no deal was done, and Rover couldn't pay the bills. Their suppliers were losing patience. Workers say there have been parts shortages for 2 months, and yesterday the production line stopped altogether. And then, late last night, the government and the unions announced the company couldn't go on.
Tonight, MG Rover has announced that the board has decided to call in the receivers. This is a devastating blow for all those involved, the workers and their families, the company's suppliers, and the wider community. And our thoughts are with them tonight.
Nobody from MG Rover's senior management team was at the press conference. Thus, workers learned of their fate from a government minister speaking to the media. And it hasn't cleared up confusion over Longbridge's immediate future. The Trade and Industry Secretary suggesting Longbridge would be shut down, with creditor banks seizing MG Rover's assets. However, a company spokesman told us this morning that an accounting firm had been invited in merely to advise them on future options. This man, John Towers, led the team who bought the plant from BMW in 2000. They paid £10 for it, but they've lost more than 600 million.
Let's give this business a chance. Let's start getting some positive promotion of this business.
But the public didn't embrace the cars, and Mr. Towers and his team still paid themselves more than £30 million in salaries and benefits. So what comes next? The government's pledged £40 million in aid to those working for MG Rover's suppliers. Part of the business could be sold off. Industry analysts think the MG sports car could be profitable, but that would leave Rover, its workers and their pension entitlements looking very vulnerable.
It will give SI.
Well, as we reported earlier, the Trade and Industry Secretary, Patricia Hewitt, was here this morning. Just before she left the plant, I caught up with her and I asked her if the £100 million bridging loan that the government had offered had been offered for the full 2 years that the China Shanghai Automotive were worried about in terms of Rover's solvency.
The bridging loan was never designed to cover the 2 years. The bridging loan was designed to keep MG Rover in business until they could conclude their deal with the Chinese. And we made that offer of a bridging loan, over £100 million of taxpayers' money. And that offer remained on the table. The money was available for as long as there was a prospect of the deal with the Chinese being done.
But you were not prepared to guarantee the solvency of Rover over the next 2 years with that £100 million loan.
Well, of course we couldn't do that. And John Towers and the Phoenix directors believed and told us that they believed that they could convince SIAC, the Chinese, on their concerns about future solvency. By the end of yesterday, it became absolutely clear that MG Rover could not reassure SIAC about its future solvency after a deal was done. And that was why the Chinese said they could not continue negotiating the deal.
OK, now there are workers who may not be paid, there are creditors who are out of pocket. How much government money will go to make sure people get their money?
I came here first thing this morning with Tony Woodley of the TNG to see the union shop stewards here at Longbridge. Now, what the workforce and the unions here are focusing on is doing everything that can be done to try and save jobs here and secure a future for car manufacturing here at Longbridge.
But the £40 million that you've announced, will that go to the creditors and to the workers here at Rover?
I have become very concerned about the position of the suppliers, some of whom yesterday were saying that they were considering laying off some of their workers. So what I've already done this morning is to put in place an immediate £40 million support package just for the component suppliers. Now that's to give them a breathing space while they sit down with their own and our business advisors and we look at how we can help them get other customers, create new products and so on to make sure that their workers have a secure future. But for the workers here at Longbridge, obviously we need to see what decisions the company makes today. I'm sure they will be in touch with me and with the union to let us know exactly what is happening for the workers here.
You see, the Labour pledge card for this election tells people your family better off under Labour. How can you look a Rover worker in the eye today and say your family better off?
When Rover went into crisis 5 years ago, we announced a support package of £127 million. We set up the first Rover task force. We helped components companies and workers right through the West Midlands and beyond to diversify so that their jobs were no longer totally dependent on MG Rover. We've got components companies around here who are, for instance, selling to BMW in Germany, whose future is far more secure now than it would have been if MG Rover had collapsed, as it might have done 5 years ago. That's what we're now building on to secure the future for the components companies and the workforce here at Longbridge, for whom this is an absolutely devastating day, know that the government and the unions will be doing everything we can, just as we did everything we could to secure the Chinese deal. We will now go on doing everything we can to support them and their families, and above all, to save as many jobs here as we can and to secure a future for car manufacturing at Longbridge.
The Trade and Industry Secretary, Patricia Hewitt, talking to me earlier. We'll have more from Longbridge later on in the programme on the future for workers and suppliers and the political impact of this momentous decision. But now, over to Rome and John.
Krishna.
More on Rover. We'll be talking to the Director General of the CBI, Sir Digby Jones, and asking where did it all go wrong? Once the last word in affordable luxury, 100 years of car making at Rover.
Green, then be there for real.
Plans to restart full car production. Most staff are being sent home on full pay for the moment. China's Shanghai Automotive said it's unlikely it'll reopen talks for a deal while the company is under administration.
We've got no plans to recommence car production in the administration. As regards the employees themselves, we've communicated with the employees very early this morning, and we've told them that they will be paid on full pay until further notice from ourselves. But there is no production going on the site. So what we'll be doing later in the day, most of the workforce will be sent home until further communication from us.
Well, 5's Jason Farrell is at Longbridge plant right now. Jason, so a very confusing time for the workers. How are they reacting? What are they being told?
Well, they're confused, they're cross, they're angry, and they're fearful for their jobs. They turned up this morning, they were given a letter which explained to them that the company was making between 20 and 25 million pound losses every month, and that it was being taken over by the administrators, but that they had been fed this lifeline by the government of £6.5 million, which would keep them in wages for at least another week. They were told in the letter that they are not being made redundant. Now, there's been a series of meetings this morning. The first one was at around about 8:30 when the joint shops got together and discussed this. Then a huge surge of workers walked into a meeting at 10 o'clock where they were told by the unions what was going on. I got a chance to speak to a few of those workers in between the meetings, and here's what they had to say.
People here that have been here obviously years, the skills that they've got, and it's going to be like a massive download on the area. Today will be like a milestone for us, because I don't think we'll be going back, and it'll just be devastating for everybody here.
There's nothing left. There's no jobs, no money, there's nothing.
Well, it could have been worse. I spoke to the administrators in here just a moment ago, and they said if they hadn't been fed this lifeline, they were expecting to make around about 5,000 redundancies today. That could still happen next week. But some of the workers are concerned not just for their jobs, but also, for example, they have company cars. One worker said to me that the insurance was up on the cars, and they weren't even sure whether they were insured to drive them anymore. So it's terrible confusion. Their lives really have been thrown into disarray.
Still no deal on the table, and the Chinese company saying this lunchtime that there is no deal going to happen while the company's in administration. What's the latest on that?
Yes, well, this £6.5 million really is a breathing space. They're buying time. The administrators want to put together a new deal to Shanghai Automotives. There are basically two problems facing them. One is that the previous deal that was done with Shanghai earlier this year for £67 million gave them the rights, the intellectual rights to two of Rover's biggest cars, the 75 and the 25. And it also gave them rights to the K-Series engine. Now that's what they're saying today, what the administrators are saying today, that still wouldn't give them the capacity and the know-how to make those cars. So they're saying that they still have plenty to offer. The problem is they haven't actually spoken to them yet. What they're going to do this week is just make sure that they can get a meeting.
OK, Jason in Longbridge, thank you very much for that. Now it's a debilitating...